Reflection for All Saints' Day.
Today, the Church invites us to lift our eyes and see something breathtaking. In the Epistle from the Apocalypse, St. John shows us a vision of heaven that should fill us with hope. He sees a multitude so vast that no one could count them, from every nation and tribe and people and language, standing before the throne of God. They're wearing white robes and holding palm branches, and they cry out in a loud voice about the salvation that comes from God. Who are these people? They're the saints. Not just the famous ones whose names we know, but countless ordinary men and women who lived faithfully, who said yes to God day after day, who persevered through trials and temptations, and who now stand victorious in heaven. This is where we're all called to be. Every single one of us, no matter how ordinary we feel, no matter how many times we've stumbled, is called to be in that number. The call to holiness isn't just for a select few with extraordinary gifts or perfect track records. It's for you. It's for me. It's for the child sitting in the pew, fidgeting with a toy. It's for the grandmother quietly praying her rosary. It's for the teenager who struggles with doubts. It's for the father working 2 jobs to provide for his family. St. John Vianney, the curé of Ars, understood this deeply. He struggled in seminary, nearly failed his studies, and felt inadequate his whole life. Yet he became one of the greatest parish priests in history because he never let his limitations stop him from loving God and serving souls. He once said that God knows what we are and that he is willing to work with what we give him. The saints weren't superhuman. They were people who kept showing up, kept trying, kept turning back to God, even after failing. What God notices isn't our perfection, but our persistence. Not our talent, but our trust. The gospel gives us the roadmap. Jesus sits down on the mountain, and his disciples gather around him, and he begins to teach them what we call the Beatitudes. Blessed are the poor in spirit. Blessed are those who mourn. Blessed are the meek. At first hearing, these don't sound like blessings at all. The world tells us to be self-sufficient, to never show weakness, to fight for our rights, to pursue happiness at all costs. But Jesus is turning everything upside down, or rather, right side up. He's showing us what's truly valuable in the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. This is where it all begins. St. Augustine tells us that this poverty of spirit is humility, recognizing that we have nothing of our own that we haven't received from God. It means we stop pretending we're in control, stop acting like we're the center of the universe, and instead acknowledge our complete dependence on God. Every saint who ever lived started here. Think of St. Francis, who literally stripped himself of his fine clothes and embraced Lady Poverty. He understood that when we empty ourselves, God has room to fill us. Blessed are those who mourn, for they shall be comforted. The saints knew sorrow. St. Monica cried for years over her wayward son Augustine. St. Elizabeth Ann Seton lost her husband and faced poverty and rejection. They didn't pretend suffering didn't exist, and Jesus doesn't ask us to either. He promises comfort, not the absence of pain. When we turn to God in our grief, when we trust him even in darkness, we find a consolation the world cannot give. Blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth. Meekness isn't weakness, it's strength under control. It's choosing gentleness when we could be harsh, choosing patience when we could lash out, choosing forgiveness when we could hold a grudge. St. Jane Frances de Chantal once said that nothing is as strong as gentleness, and nothing is as gentle as real strength. The meek person has mastered themselves first, and that's the hardest victory of all. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they shall be satisfied. This is a holy longing, a deep desire for what's right and good and true. The saints had this hunger burning in their hearts. It drove them to prayer, to the sacraments, to works of mercy. Saint Catherine of Siena was so consumed with love for God and desire for holiness that she could barely eat earthly food. She knew that our souls need feeding just as much as our bodies do, and only God can truly satisfy. Blessed are the merciful, for they shall obtain mercy. We see this lived out powerfully in saints like Maria Goretti, who forgave her attacker as she lay dying, or Maximilian Kolbe, who gave his life for a stranger in a concentration camp. Mercy means seeing others as God sees them, recognizing their dignity even when they've wronged us, and extending compassion even when it costs us something. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God. Purity of heart means having a single focus and undivided loyalty to God. It means we're not trying to serve two masters or keep one foot in the world and one foot in heaven. St. Thomas Aquinas said that purity brings clarity. When our hearts are clean, we can see more clearly what matters and what doesn't, what's eternal and what's passing away. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called sons of God. Notice Jesus doesn't say, blessed are those who simply keep the peace by avoiding conflict. He says peacemakers, those who actively work to bring reconciliation, healing, and unity. This might mean having difficult conversations, standing up for truth even when it's uncomfortable, or choosing to be the first to apologize. The saints were peacemakers not by compromising truth, but by embodying it in love. And then comes the one that's hardest to hear. Blessed are those who are persecuted for righteousness' sake, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are you when men revile you and persecute you, and utter all kinds of evil against you falsely on my account. Rejoice and be glad, for your reward is great in heaven. This is where the rubber meets the road. Following Jesus will cost us something. Maybe not our lives, though for many saints it did. But it might cost us popularity, comfort, success by worldly standards. It might mean being misunderstood, mocked, or excluded. The Mass reminds us in its prayers that these saints help us. We're not alone in this journey. They've walked this road before us, and now they intercede for us from heaven. That great cloud of witnesses surrounding us wants us to succeed, wants us to join them, prays for us constantly. When things get hard, we can call on them. When we're tempted, we can ask for their prayers. When we're discouraged, we can look at their lives and remember that they face the same struggles we do. The secret is this: holiness isn't about never falling down. It's about getting back up every time we do. It's about starting again each morning, returning to the sacraments, especially confession and the Eucharist, where God's grace flows into our weakness. St. Josemaria Escriva used to say that saints are sinners who keep trying. They don't give up on themselves because they know God never gives up on them. So today, as we celebrate all the saints in glory, let's take heart. That white-robed multitude in heaven includes people just like us who struggled just like we do. They worried about their families, faced temptations, dealt with difficult people, had days when prayer felt dry and God felt far away. But they persevered. They believed that what Jesus promised in the Beatitudes was true, even when it didn't feel true. They bet their whole lives on heaven being real and worth any sacrifice. And now they've won. They're home. They see God face to face. They want nothing more than for us to join them there. Heaven isn't just possible for us. It's what we were made for. So let's walk the path of the Beatitudes with confidence, knowing that the saints are cheering us on, praying for us, and showing us that it can be done. The road is narrow, yes, but it leads to life, and that great multitude has already walked it successfully. Now it's our turn.